Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure for me to address you today on the occasion of the Russian Diplomats' Day, as I call it, as we call this Russian Diplomats' Professional Festivity, which was established back in 2002. And the date, the 10th of February, is closely related to the history of Russian diplomatic service, because it was exactly the 10th of February 1549 in the 16th century, when the ambassadorial department established by the Russian Tsar Ivan IV was for the very first time mentioned in historical documents that were found in our archives. So, since that date, we have been counting the history of the Russian diplomatic service. And I'm very happy that today you are here with us to share the celebration of this day. Well, I recollect that 1 year ago and 2 years ago, exactly on that very day, we also gathered we also invited our friends and colleagues and counterparts for this kind of exchange. And there were much more participants than today. I think it's because of heavy rain and banjir that is apparently taking place today. And but I hope that Jakarta will overcome these difficulties. It faces maybe every year in winter. But funny thing, while driving here in my car, I was told by my colleagues that the recent heavy rainfalls in Jakarta have very interesting reason, and the reason is the cold surge in Russian Siberia. So, cold in Siberia affected climate in Jakarta and caused this heavy rainfall. Well, it means that our world is very closely interconnected, and that is exactly what I'm going to speak on today. I'm going to speak about the current foreign policy course of the Russian Federation, and the main point we proceed from when formulating basic priorities of the Russian foreign policy is that the present-day world is multipolar or polycentric and very closely interconnected world. We can see that there is a great difference between the world order that had been prevailing during the Cold War period and current shape of international relations. I mean that during Cold War era, the world was bipolar. There were two main poles represented by what we called at that time the West and the East, and there were very complex relations between East and West. There was confrontation, there was cooperation, there was peaceful coexistence. But still the world had been bipolar at that time. Now, the world is apparently multipolar, and the most important and the clearest evidence of that is the growing number of various integration mechanisms or coordination and cooperation mechanisms that are being established in fact all over the world. And a good example to dwell on here in Jakarta is ASEAN integration process. 10 member states of ASEAN are going to launch three-pillar community later this year, in December this year. We also can mention such new coordination mechanisms and structures like BRICS, namely Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. We also can mention SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which members are China, Russia, Central Asian, Kazakhstan, and some other Central Asian countries, and which is going to be maybe expanded soon as a result of possible joining of Pakistan and Iran. So the world, today's world is, present-day world is multipolar, and there is a growing number of states who have all grounds, in accordance with the UN Charter, to participate in international relations and to pursue foreign policy aimed at meeting their national interests. But, and this is the main systemic contradiction under current geopolitical circumstances in the world, but there are certainly big group of states, I think we may call them as traditional West or historical West, headed by the United States of America, who do not agree, who cannot accept or do not accept the multipolar reality of present-day world. They, unfortunately, they seem to be still they seem to think that the world, they are still they still have this delusion, self-delusion, that they are what they call winners in the Cold War, and that they can shape this world only in accordance with their own interests, ignoring the rightful interests of other participants of international relations, ignoring the interests of other members of the United Nations and other members of the international community. And this is exactly, really, the main, as we see it, the main contradiction, the main controversy in present-day world. We try to promote ideas of multipolar structure of the international community, and we try to enable all the members of the international community to ensure their interests in international relations in accordance with the UN Charter, which, as you know, proclaims such important principles as sovereignty, independence, non-interference with domestic affairs, and refusal of use of force or threat of use of force. But, unfortunately, the Western countries, headed by the United States of America, they, during the recent quarter of a century, since the end of Cold War and since the demise of the Soviet Union, they have taken several actions that finally have led to destruction of the stability mechanisms based on the UN Charter and above-mentioned principles declared in the UN Charter. I mean, first of all, such destructive actions of the West, like bombing Yugoslavia back in the 90s of 20th century. I mean such actions as invasion in Iraq. I mean such action as aggression against Libya. And all of these actions were taken without any permission or without any resolution of the UN Security Council, which, as you know, is the only international body who has special responsibility for international peace and stability. So there was a huge violation of international law when the West took above-mentioned actions. Also, we can see the apparent policy of the West aimed at domination on the global geopolitical space by doing actions like I mentioned about Yugoslavia, Libya, Iraq, now in Syria, where the West is trying to topple the legitimate government of the country, ignoring the necessity of fighting terrorism on the territory of Syria and Iraq. We also see it in Ukraine, where the West engineered and then supported anti-constitutional change of power as a result of armed coup d'etat committed by rightist groups, committed by nationalist groups, extreme nationalist groups and neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine, in Kiev, which led to toppling of a legitimate president of this country. So this kind of policy of the West, it is not what is accepted by Russia. Russia has been strongly opposing to this policy since it started in back in 90s, last century. And this is the main reason that the West is trying to push Russia, or as they say, to punish Russia, and to push Russia out on the margins of international policy, on the margins of the geopolitical space, of the global geopolitical space. It is reflected in illegal sanctions imposed on my country recently. It is reflected in the policy of what the Western countries call isolation of Russia, under the fake pretext of alleged interference of Russia in Ukraine. But the current situation in the world also clearly shows the limitations for such policy of the West, because though the West, and including President of the United States of America, they try to strongly say that Russia is isolated, but in fact we do not see any isolation of Russia. And it is impossible to isolate Russia because Russia is the biggest country in the world, first of all. Russia is the 5th or 6th biggest economy in the world. Russia has very strong economic, industrial, intellectual, scientific and technological potential, and military potential, by the way, too. But what is not less important is that Russia, in current situation in the world, has much more partners than ever before. How can you call Russia isolated in the situation when we have very close, friendly and advanced partnership with such countries like China, like India, like Indonesia, like Brazil, like Argentina, and many, many other countries in the world. And if you look at the situation in the West, you will for sure understand that there is no unity even in the Western camp with regards to the policy towards Russia. There are many countries in the European Union who, to this or that degree, trying to oppose the policy of the, let's say, Western leaders, aimed at isolation of Russia, aimed at imposing sanctions on Russia. So there is no unity, and we clearly see it, for example, on the issue of whether to supply, to deliver or not lethal weaponry to Ukraine. There are strong opinions in the United States in favor of delivering lethal weaponry to Ukraine, but at the same time, just today, just yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we all have seen the statements of some other important and big European countries, like Germany, for example, saying that their countries have no intention to supply lethal weapons to the Ukrainian army, to Kiev regime, who, by the way, is carrying out a military punitive operation against their own citizens in the eastern part of the country, who disagreed, who did not accept the results of anti-constitutional change of power and armed coup d'etat in Kiev in February last year, and who did not agree with the policy of current Kiev authorities. And these citizens were just declared terrorists, though they are Ukrainian citizens, though they are living on their soil and they are fighting for their right to live on their soil, to follow their traditions, to respect their history, the history of their country. I mean that the thesis about isolation of Russia, which is widely promoted by the United States of America, the UK, and some other close allies of the United States, is completely groundless, because there is no isolation of Russia, as well as there is no unity in the West with regards to the policy towards Russia. What does Russia intend to do in the current international situation? First of all, we will never accept the Western formula of world order. I mean that we'll never accept the situation which the West is trying to impose on us. We'll never accept the vision of the world that the West is trying to impose on us. I mean the world which is ruled by a single leader, who is trying to decide what is allowed and what is not allowed to do for the other members of the international community. And this leader thinks that he is allowed to do everything, but the others are allowed to do only what the leader allows to do, and for the interests of this leader. Will never accept such a vision, and will continuously strongly put emphasis on the central role of the United Nations and its charter in shaping present-day multipolar world. We will strongly continue a policy aimed at launching and using multilateral approach towards solution of the acutest international, global and regional problems of present-day world. We'll continuously take active stance in the United Nations Security Council for the purposes I've mentioned above. And also, we will continue our multi-vector foreign policy. Saying multi-vector, I mean that our policy will be focused not only just on Western direction, on the direction of relations with the Western countries, though we are ready to continue our partner-like relations with the West, but only on the basis of equality, mutual benefit, and non-interference, which are the basic principles of our approach to any region, but first of all to the West, because as the recent developments showed, the West is trying to impose its values, its traditions, its views on Russia, in fact by force, by using economic and political sanctions. That's what we won't agree. And but it doesn't mean that we ignore the importance of relations with the West in the field of economy, in the field of security, in the field of education, human exchange, etc., humanitarian exchange, etc. We just are going to seek a new ground, new basis for this relationship, if and when the West is ready. But at the same time, and you might have noticed it already, Russia is, in recent years, Russia is getting more and more active in pursuing broader diplomacy, broader foreign policy, broader cooperation with the Asia-Pacific region. I'm sure you noticed the active stance of Russia as a chair of Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation mechanism back in 2012. And from that point of view, we will continue and we will make closer and wider cooperation with China, India, ASEAN countries, and first of all Indonesia as the biggest economy and biggest country of ASEAN. But it's not an alternative to our relations with the West. It's a natural development of our foreign policy because Russia is a Eurasian country, and we consider it as equally important to develop relations with both the West and the East today. And one of our main priorities, of course, is to further deepen integration processes on Eurasian space. As you know, on the 1st of January this year, we launched a new, very ambitious, very large-scale integration project, namely Eurasian Economic Union, which members are Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan and Armenia, and soon in May Kyrgyzstan will join this Eurasian Economic Union, which means creation of a vast market with the free flow of labor force, goods, capitals and services from Baltic Sea in the west to the Pacific Ocean in the east. And what we think is very important is to bridge this Eurasian integration process with Asia-Pacific integration processes, including ASEAN community. And this is why we have already made first steps to establish ties between Eurasian Economic Commission, which is the supranational body of this Eurasian Economic Union, and ASEAN Secretariat. Last year, ASEAN Secretary General Mr. Lev visited Moscow and had a very first meeting with the chairman of the board of Eurasian Economic Commission, Mr. Viktor Khristenko, July last year in Moscow. And also, speaking today, in the year 2015, I would like to specially mention that this year we will celebrate the 70th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet people, of the Soviet Union and its allies in the Second World War, in Great Patriotic War. And using this opportunity, I would like to underscore the central role and decisive role of the peoples of the Soviet Union, including Russian, Ukrainians, Belarusian, Tatars, Jews, Azerbaijanians, Kyrgyzs, etc., in achieving victory over Nazi Germany and militarist Japan, and thus freeing the world from Nazis and militarist occupation. I'm sure there will be many events this year celebrating this glorious anniversary. And it is especially important nowadays because, unfortunately, in the western part of the world, let's say so, including some NATO countries, including some EU countries, the neo-Nazist ideas, unfortunately, are coming back. And they are coming back in Ukraine, where now the current government is glorifying those figures, let's say so, from Ukrainian history, who collaborated with Nazi Germany during the Second World War, who committed heavy crimes like mass killings of Russians, Ukrainians who did not agree with the Nazi policy, Poles, Jews, and others. And these people are being glorified in present-day Ukraine, which is really a shame. And not only in Ukraine, in Estonia and Latvia, who are proclaiming what they call European values, we see the military parades glorifying those who collaborated with Nazis during the Second World War, glorifying those who fought against the Soviet army and Allied powers on the side of German army, on the side of German SS units, etc. So this is what should be strongly denounced and deplored, and that's what shouldn't be ever accepted. And this is why we attach great importance to the celebration of the victory in the Second World War. And as we understand, the victory of Allied powers in the Second World War was the basic precondition of the independence of Indonesia, which was declared on the 17th of August 1945, also 70 years ago, and I'm sure that there will be big celebrations in Indonesia too. I think those who are interested, those of you who are interested, may get the text of main points of my address today. I'll stop at this, and I will ask you to ask your questions to me. Let's have a questions and answers session. I would like to add only that a week ago we also celebrated the 65th anniversary of establishment of Russian-Indonesian diplomatic relations. And I would like to say that we highly appreciate our relations with Indonesia, which are based on the principles of equality, non-interference, mutually beneficial cooperation, and respect for sovereignty and independent foreign policy of each country, Indonesia and Russia, and the very friendly, partner-like and promising nature of our relations was manifested last year in November when President Joko Widodo and President Putin held their very first meeting in Beijing on the sidelines of the APEC summit. It was a very fruitful meeting which gave very rich results in terms of further cooperation in such fields as trade economy, investments, military and technical cooperation, political coordination, etc. So it is a very special year for Russian-Indonesian relations too. And I would like to apologize, my friends, because my schedule has changed suddenly. Actually, at 2 p.m. today, I was supposed to meet a very high-ranking Indonesian official, but he is very busy and he asked me to come to his office at 11:30. So you see that outside there is a bungee or rainfall.